We make a What's in Bloom sheet every month here at the Ruth Bancroft Garden to hand out to our garden visitors. So it details a list of plants that are in flower in that particular month, ranging from big dramatic plants like this Agave ovatifolia down to little ones that you might miss if you weren't paying close attention. There's always a very wide variety of interesting plants in bloom at the garden in any given month. And so we're going to go over some of those that are going to be featured on this month's June What's in Bloom. Dudleya is a genus very much associated with California because most of the species occur in California and in Baja California to the south. So a typical Dudleya has wider leaves than this one. This is Dudleya viscida. Viscida means sticky, and because the leaves have a sticky texture to them. And so it's really not the typical Dudleya that you would think of. This Dudleya brittoni, next to it is a more commonly grown plant with chalkier leaves and wider leaves and a larger rosette. But viscida is a California native, and ours is just about to bloom. It hasn't quite opened yet, but it has pale pink flowers when it does open. Dudleyas are in the Crassulaceae, or the stonecrop family, which is a worldwide family, but Dudleyas in particular are only native to our west coast, both Mexico and the United States. Dudleya viscida. Hesperaloe is a genus in the agave family, so related to the yuccas and to the agaves. There really is only one species that's common in cultivation, and that's Hesperaloe parviflora. It has tubular red or pink flowers, sometimes yellow, and is visited by hummingbirds. But this one is a very different animal. This one is Hesperaloe funifera, and it has white flowers that open quite widely, visited by bees during the daytime and by moths at night. The flowers are a little bit purple flushed at the bud stage and on the underside, and white or a little bit greenish white on the top. And because the inflorescence is so large with all these branches, it takes a long time to go through its flowering process. So most of the summer. So ours has just been flowering now for the last couple of weeks with lots and lots of buds to go. If you look at the long sword-like leaves of this Hesperaloe, you'll notice the curling fibers on the edge of the leaf. So this is a sign that the leaves have strong fibers in them, which is very true of not only this plant, but its relatives. Other Hesperaloes and agaves and yuccas all have fibrous leaves, and that's a manifestation of this. It's not a common trait in the plant kingdom to have curling fibers on the edge of the leaf, but Hesperaloes show this abundantly. Hesperaloe funifera from northern Mexico. A lot of the aloes we have here at the Ruth Bancroft Garden come from South Africa, which indeed has a great many aloe species, but there are others from other places too. This one is Aloe rivae from southern Ethiopia and northern Kenya. It's maybe not all that bomb-proof as far as resistance to cold goes, so it's growing here underneath the canopy of a pine tree, which provides just enough shelter overhead to deflect cold air on a cold night and keep it happy. This plant, as we tape this on the 1st of June, has not quite opened its flowers yet. They are coral tubular flowers with a grayish tip. And when they open, just the tip separates a little bit. So it's really not that different from the way it looks now. But it's really a triumph for me to have this plant in flower because you don't often see Aloe rivae represented in cultivation. The inflorescence is only one, but with lots of branches, but an older plant might have 2 or even 3 inflorescences on it. Aloe rivae. The hyacinth family is a well-known family of bulbs, widely seen in gardens all around the world. So there are lots of familiar ones like the hyacinths and the grape hyacinths and the squills. But there are many, many representatives from Southern Africa as well. And the genus Albuca is a good example. This one is Albuca nelsonii. So we have other Albucas here in the garden that are quite small, that are from the winter growing area and go dormant in the summer months. But this is from farther east in eastern South Africa, where it gets its rainfall in the summertime. So we do have to water it in the summer months, but not all that much. And it's really a beautiful plant. Here it is in flower with these green and white striped flowers. So all albucas have flowers that are either white or yellow, usually with a green stripe on the petals. And here they're so large, they're really quite conspicuous. But you'll notice that the flowers, there are six tepals or petals, and the outer three separate, and the inner three stay together and cupped. And so that means you don't see the middle part where the stamens and the pistil are. They're hidden, and the insect has to work its way in there to get to them. But really quite wonderful in flower, and our big clump here making a lot of flowers. If it weren't in flower, you might mistake it for something like an agapanthus, but the flowers give it away as an albuca. Some taxonomists in recent years have included the Hyacinthaceae as a subfamily within the asparagus family. And in that system, it is subfamily Psiloideae within the asparagus family rather than its own family, Hyacinthaceae. But either way, we're talking about the same group of wonderful plants, Albuca nelsonii. Here in California, our state flower is the California poppy, Eschscholzia californica. But that's not the only poppy that is present here in the state. Here is another spectacular one, Romneya coulteri, the Matilha poppy. So, common name for this plant is the fried egg bush, and I think you can see why, with the cluster of stamens in the middle looking like the yolk, and those roughly white petals looking like the egg white. It really is an amazing plant, a vigorous grower, and spreads quite a lot. You want to be careful putting this in your garden because it can spread into adjacent beds if you allow it to do so. So maybe better to grow it in a place where you want it to spread. The flowers come in the late spring to early summer, and they're so huge and so showy that you just can't miss them. Romneya coulteri. That brings us to the close of our June What's in Bloom roundup. But before I sign off, I want to give a shout out to a wonderful group of plants that almost never make it onto What's in Bloom, and that's the cactus family. This one here is Sorensia terragensis, subspecies Bertramiana from South America. And as you can see, it's a column of shaggy spines with beautiful white flowers at the top. So the reason we don't put these cacti on our What's in Bloom is because the flowers don't last all that long, usually only a few days. So they are not in bloom continuously for enough time to make it onto the What's in Bloom list, but they are spectacular plants and cherished plants in our garden. So we encourage you to come visit the garden to see them for yourself. Many of them are in bloom in the spring and the summer months. And from little tiny ones all the way to larger ones like this, and even taller ones as well. The cactus family all come from the Americas, from North America or from South America, and they are widely collected plants, and it's easy to see why, because their spines are so wonderful and their flowers are so wonderful. Cacti come in all shapes and sizes, and here is one of the barrel cacti. This one is Phaerocactus pilosus, native to northern Mexico, with its cup-like orange flowers. Different Phaerocactus have different colored flowers and different amounts of spines and so on, but that barrel form is a commonality between them. Phaerocactus pilosus has been growing here in the garden for many years, and even though our plants are sort of barrel-like, they're nowhere near as big as plants are in Mexico, where they can get to be more than 6 feet tall, but that takes a long time to get there. Yet another kind of a cactus is a prickly pear, and this one here is one of those, Opuntia humifusa from the eastern United States. And it is a plant that lives in places where it gets very cold in the wintertime. And so as a result, the pads sort of turn limp and wrinkly and lie down on the ground. And you think maybe the plant's died, but that's just what it does to go into its winter dormancy period. Then when spring comes, it perks back up and comes into flower and has these beautiful flowers, yellow flowers with a red center. Opuntia humifusa. That's only one of many prickly pears, which range from Canada all the way down to Argentina. So the biggest range of any genus in the whole cactus family. And some of them, like this, are quite short plants. Others grow into large shrubby plants or even almost trees. Opuntia is a very large and interesting genus. Well, that brings us to the end of this edition of What's in Bloom, and I encourage you to come to the garden to see all these plants for yourself. And if you can't, check out our website. Lots of educational offerings and what's in bloom videos and postings of plants and flower and so on. The Ruth Bancroft Garden.